There is a script no one on Earth can read. It's stamped on tiny seals, a unicorn-like animal, a row of symbols above it, and we have thousands of them. They come from a civilization that was bigger than ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined, a civilization of brick cities laid out on perfect grids, with covered sewers and public baths and standardized weights, 4,500 years ago, and we cannot read a single word it left behind. We don't know what its people called themselves. We don't know what language they spoke. We don't even know, for certain, what happened to them. This is the Indus Valley Civilization, Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, and 100 other cities buried across what is now Pakistan and northwest India. And for a century it sat there as the single largest hole in the human story, a superpower of the ancient world. Silent, unreadable, its people seemingly vanished. But its people did not vanish. That's the twist. Because when geneticists finally cracked open one grave, a single skeleton, a woman who died over 4,000 years ago in a place called Rakhigarhi, and compared her DNA against every ancient empire we know, one match came back that changed everything. It didn't just tell us who the Indus people were. It told a living population of tens of millions of people, right now, exactly whose descendants they are. The mystery of the buried city and the mystery of the Punjabi genome turned out to be the same mystery. Solve one, and you solve the other. So let's dig. Start at the surface, with what everyone assumed, because you have to understand the wrong answer to feel the shock of the right one. For most of the 20th century, the story of Northwest South Asia went like this. Long ago, light-skinned Aryan invaders swept down from the outside on horses and chariots, destroyed the Indus cities, and became the ancestors of the northern peoples, the Punjabis and others. The Indus people, in this telling, were the losers of history, wiped out or pushed south, a dead branch. And the living peoples of Punjab were imagined mostly as the children of the invaders who replaced them. It was a tidy story. It was also, in almost every important way, wrong. And it took a woman dead for 4,000 years to prove it. Her grave was at Rakhigarhi, one of the largest Indus sites. Extracting her DNA was brutal work. The hot, wet climate of South Asia destroys ancient genetic material, and the team failed again and again before pulling one usable genome out of the ground. When they finally sequenced her, Shinde and colleagues, published in Cell in 2019, and held her up against every ancient population we had, they were braced for the invader story to be confirmed. It wasn't, and the way it broke is the whole point. Here is what the woman from Rakhigarhi actually was, and here is the match that changed everything. Her genome was built from two deep ingredients, and only two. The first was a very ancient Iranian-related lineage, but, crucially, a branch that had split off so early it predated farming itself, a hunter-gatherer-related strand from the direction of the Iranian plateau that had been in the region for a staggeringly long time. The second was the deep indigenous ancestry of the subcontinent itself, a lineage geneticists call ancient ancestral South Indian, the truly native foundation of the land, stretching back tens of thousands of years. And now look at what was missing. There was no steppe ancestry in her, none. The genetic signature of those horse-riding, chariot-driving newcomers from the northern grasslands, the people the old invasion story built its whole case on, was simply not there, because in her time they hadn't arrived yet. That's the first half of the revelation. The Indus Valley Civilization was built by a people native to the region, a blend of ancient Iranian-related and deep South Asian ancestry, and not by outsiders at all. The greatest civilization of the ancient East was homegrown. Now here comes the match that reaches into the present and grabs living people by the collar. When scientists compared that ancient Indus profile to the populations living in that same region today, the Punjabis and their neighbors across the northwest, they didn't find strangers. They found descendants. The Indus people didn't die out. They are the single largest ancestral ingredient in the peoples who live on that land right now. When a Punjabi looks for their deepest root, it runs straight down into the brick foundations of Harappa. The builders of the unreadable city are not a lost people. They are grandparents. The empire that vanished didn't vanish. It just stopped writing and kept living. If the idea of a dead civilization turning out to be your own ancestors is the kind of thing that gives you chills, subscribe. Not for the algorithm, because nearly every ancient vanished people has living descendants who never knew, and you're going to want to be here when we open the next grave. Now, a good mystery has a second half. Because if the Indus people had no steppe ancestry, but modern Punjabis clearly do carry some, then something happened between her time and ours. And this is where the old invasion story gets replaced by something more accurate and, honestly, more interesting. The steppe herders did come, but they came later than the myth claimed, roughly after 2000 BC, after the great Indus cities had already begun to decline, most likely from a slow catastrophe of shifting rivers and weakening monsoons, not from an army. The newcomers didn't smash a thriving civilization. They drifted into a landscape that was already changing, and they mixed with the enormous existing population rather than replacing it. They brought something powerful with them, the Indo-Aryan language, the ancestor of Punjabi and Hindi and Urdu and so much else, and very likely the R1A lineage so common in the region's men today. But genetically, they were a layer added on top, not a foundation poured underneath. So the modern Punjabi genome is a specific, traceable recipe. Take the ancient Indus people, themselves a blend of early Iranian-related and deep native South Asian ancestry. Then layer the steppe herders on top a few thousand years ago. Stir over 4 millennia. What you get is exactly the population that lives in Punjab today, sitting at the northern, steppe-rich end of a genetic gradient that runs down across the whole subcontinent. The cline that the great Narasimhan study in science mapped across more than 500 ancient genomes in 2019. The invaders were real, but they were the newest chapter, not the first one. The first chapter was written in unreadable script on a seal, 4,500 years ago, by people whose blood is still walking around Lahore and Amritsar today. Let's go back to that seal one more time. The unicorn, the symbols we can't read. Here's what's almost unbearable about it, in the best way. We still can't read the script. We still don't know what those people called themselves, or what language they spoke, or what they believed. In the world of writing, they are still silent. The greatest mystery of the ancient East is, on that front, still unsolved. But in the world of blood, they've been found. We couldn't read their words, so we read their genome instead, and the genome said, plainly, we are still here. The signatures pressed into those seals are illegible, but the signature pressed into the DNA of a living people is perfectly clear. A whole civilization that history had written off as vanish turned out to have simply stopped signing its name in a language we understand, while it kept signing it, generation after generation, in the one script that never needs translating. That's the thing about DNA. It doesn't need a decoder. It doesn't need a Rosetta Stone. When a city goes silent and the archaeologists give up and the textbooks say vanished, the blood keeps quietly repeating the same sentence across 4,000 years. We did not disappear, we became you, until someone finally opens a grave and learns how to listen. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Thanks for staying until the very end. Goodbye for now.